Hi, crafties, and welcome to Weekend Crafting Adventures. I'm Kim, and I have just finished up using some Citristrip paint and varnish stripping gel to etch some stainless steel tumblers. And before I tell you all about my experience, I want to tell you about the inspiration behind this project. I have been interested in what this Citristrip etching process was all about. I've seen it all over social media. I have seen it on different Facebook groups. I've seen it all over the internet. And I thought it would be a really interesting and different project to try. So really, that's just the inspiration behind doing this project. I do want to just start out and tell you that this is just my experience using the Citristrip gel and what it was like for me to do a couple of tumblers, etch them with this gel. It's a chemical, and there's lots of different information out on the internet on how to do this project. So I am not a how to do this project. I am about sharing my experience. So if it is something that you've done or that you've tried or that you're going to try, please just make sure you use all of the safety precautions and are careful, because it is a strong chemical. And I have read some different things about the method of heating it up to make the process go faster. So just make sure that you do all of the research and have all of the safety precautions that you need, depending on which way you choose to do this project. If you do, I chose to do the time method. There are two different methods for using the Citristrip gel, and there's a time method and then there's a heat method. And obviously, from what I've heard and what I've seen on the internet, the heat method definitely is a quicker way to get the project done, but I chose not to do that. I do not have the right safety equipment for that kind of project. So I stuck with the time method, and I'm going to tell you all about it. So the first thing I want to do is highlight a couple of really important materials that I used. Again, all of the materials will be on my blog post. I may forget a few as I'm talking about them, but everything will be listed on the blog post. So you can check that out if you're interested in what I used for my project. First of all, obviously, the Citristrip paint and varnish stripping gel. I got that. I did get a 6-pack of black painted stainless steel tumblers, and I did that because I wanted to make more than one, and I also figured that I definitely was probably going to have a fail. Just from what I was reading about this project, I didn't feel like I was going to get it right the first time, and I was right about that. So I did get a 6-pack of tumblers. Some other important things that I used in mine, I used gloves to protect my hands, glasses to protect my eyes, and a mask for breathing while I was putting on the stripping gel onto the tumbler. So all of those things were things that I definitely feel like were important to highlight. A couple of other interesting ones: a tennis ball, and I'll tell you about that as I get into the experience. Some about 4-inch long wood toothpicks, rubbing alcohol, and I did actually make a cup holder, tumbler holder for this project because I was going to be putting this stripping gel onto the tumbler. I wanted to have something secure that was holding it. And so I just put together a little tumbler holder, and that I will tell you about, but I did use a pool noodle and a basket that was about 6x8 from dollar store, and some of the cardboard tubes that come in the vinyl that's rolled up. I just repurposed those and created a really quick and easy tumbler holder. So those are some of the more important and different kind of materials that I needed for this project. Oh, I did also use Oracle permanent vinyl 651 for my designs. Okay. So let me first share with you a little bit about the resources that I used to get information on this project. And there, like I said, there are tons and tons of resources. There's tons of information out on the internet, on social media about doing this etching project with the Citristrip gel. And the two that I found to be the most useful for me for the project that I was going to do, there were two. The first one was Daily Dose of DIY. And the second one was Bee's Knees. And I will make sure I have their links on the blog post as well. Bee's Knees actually has two fabulous PDFs that are free in her resource library. One is just a quick cheat sheet of the whole Citristrip process, both for the time process and for the heat process, which again, I did not do, but she has a great free cheat sheet. I've linked that in my blog post. And she also has a time PDF that's free. And what I mean by that is for different tumblers, different brands, she has tested the Citristrip process on. She lists the amount of time that it will take for the chemical to get that paint ready to be removed from the tumbler in your design. So those are some great resources that I came across and that I'm going to have for you linked in the blog post. So the first thing that I did in this project was to create a really quick, simple, cheap tumbler holder. And I figured this will come in handy whenever I'm doing some project where I'm putting vinyl, or perhaps I'm using the Citristrip gel again, and I need my tumbler to be held stationary securely, to be adding the vinyl, to be adding the Citristrip gel. And what I did is I just took a regular old pool noodle, like a Dollar Tree store pool noodle, and a dollar store little basket that's probably only about 1 or 2 inches tall, but it was about 6 inches wide and then long about 8 inches. And what I did is I just cut the pool noodle, and then about 8 inches, I trimmed it up the middle so it kind of had a slit on it. And then I took 2 of my old vinyl cardboard tubes that the vinyl comes in when it's rolled up, and I put the pool noodles on top of those tubes, and I cut little slits that went onto that little basket. And just by doing that, I was able to create a really quick and easy tumbler holder, and it worked great for this project. So that was the first step. And then after that, I needed to get my designs going for what I wanted on the tumbler. I went ahead and chose two different sayings, and one of them is right here, and it's easily distracted by craft supplies, because that's the story of my life. I am definitely easily distracted by craft supplies. So I found that cute design in Cricut Design Space. And then I also did one more design that I'll be giving to one of my coworkers. And that one was also from Cricut Design Space. And that saying is, that's a horrible idea. What time? So it's kind of that play on those people that we talk about things, and then you've got, oh no, that is an absolutely horrible idea. What time should I be there? So I thought that was kind of cute. So that was the other saying that I worked on and that I put on my stainless steel tumblers. So after I got those sayings figured out, I went ahead and had my Cricut Design Space. I made them again into almost like a stencil form, because in the process for this, what I wanted was this Citristrip gel to take out the letters and to leave a little bit of the vinyl around that as kind of a protector, just like a stencil would be. So that process I learned is called reverse weeding. So when I had my Cricut cut out these designs and phrases, I carefully weeded out the letters instead of leaving the letters and removing all of the excess vinyl from around that design. So it was a little bit of an opposite from what you typically do when you're weeding out permanent vinyl. Then I did follow one of the tips from Bee's Knees, actually a couple tips for this next step. When I applied the design to the tumbler, the first thing that I've read over and over that I made sure I did was to clean my tumbler with some alcohol, quick and easy, just to make sure all of those particles are off your tumbler, because one of the most important things about this project is getting a really good seal of your permanent vinyl to your tumbler. Just because depending on the design you have, you want that Citristrip gel just to be removing the design you weeded out. And if you don't have a good attachment of that vinyl to your tumbler, that gel could get in between the vinyl and the tumbler and remove paint from areas that are not your design, which is not what you want in this situation. So I went ahead and used the alcohol, and then I got the next tip, which is about the tennis ball I was telling you about. I've never heard this before, and I'm so glad I stumbled upon it. In the tutorial on YouTube by Bee's Knees, she suggests one of the ways to get your design to really attach onto your tumbler is to use a tennis ball, to really rub that tennis ball all around while you still have your transfer tape over your design on your tumbler to get a really good attachment. And I did that, and I really feel like it worked great. I really think it helped get that vinyl to attach to my tumbler more secure than it would by just using that scraping tool. So that was a great tip that I learned. And then the next thing that I did was another tip from Bee's Knees, which was to take, after I took off the transfer tape, I did use my hair dryer at a high setting for about 30 seconds over the permanent vinyl without the transfer tape on it to just heat it up to even attach it better to the tumbler. So that was another tip that I got from Bee's Knees that I definitely used. And again, I think it did make a difference in the process. So then I taped up my tumbler all around. So really all I had showing was the design that I was going to put the Citristrip gel on. A couple things that I learned about the Citristrip gel. I put it on with all of my protective gear, like I talked about before, but I didn't glob it. I started by almost dabbing it on like a stencil. And the reason I did that was because I was using letters and phrases. I didn't want that gel to be spread under the vinyl at all. So my first step was that dabbing motion to get that Citristrip gel on top of my design. Once it was covered, I was able then to add a little more by spreading it on top. But that first initial application was a dabbing motion. After that, I set the timer. And this was interesting because I had read, based on the kind of tumbler that I got, that it could be anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour before that chemical reaction happened and I could start to remove the Citristrip. So the first tumbler that I did, I got to the 40-minute mark. And I went and I used my little weeding tool, my little hook, and I scratched to see if that paint was bubbling up, getting ready to easily be removed. It really felt like it was to me. And so at 40 minutes, I went ahead and wiped off that Citristrip and tried to get that paint off. And I just feel like, and my experience was at 40 minutes, it wasn't long enough. Some of the paint was coming up, but I pretty much had a fail with 40 minutes. That's why I was super glad I got the 6-pack of tumblers, because I knew I would need more than just one. So I spent probably about 20 minutes trying to see if I was at the right time and I just wasn't cleaning the paint off correctly. But the more and more I tried to get it off, and from what I had researched and seen on these YouTube demonstrations and on social media, really the paint should have been coming off easier than what I was experiencing. So that one was a fail. I went back, I got my design cut out again and went through that whole setup process, and I set my timer to 50 minutes. So this is one of those projects where you just get it set your timer, and then go take care of a few other things that you need to get done and come back to it when the timer goes off. And 50 minutes was the key for the tumblers that I used to have the correct amount of chemical reaction to lift the paint, but it wasn't left on long enough so that it really spread underneath that vinyl and created I had seen like blurred edges and just not crisp design that you're looking for the etching. So again, with all of my protective wear, I was wiping off the Citristrip and then getting to the point where I was going to use my weeding tool to remove as much of that paint as possible. A lot of the demonstrations that I saw showed people like using a Scrub Daddy sponge and a non-scratching kind of like Brillo, not Brillo, but plastic Brillo, like a non-scratching, to get that extra vinyl off. And that didn't work for me. For me, I stuck with at first I used my weeding tool to check, and then I moved to like a little plastic, almost like pointer, and I carefully removed as much of my design as possible before I took my stencil off. I did wipe it down with water so I could get back in there and take my gloves off and really get in there with the tool to remove the paint. And that worked pretty well for me. Once I got as much as I could off with that plastic tool, I did remove the stencil, and I really washed it well, because now I was going to be doing the rest of what I'm going to call the detailing of the tumbler with just my hands and a toothpick, to be quite honest. So I wanted to wash it well to make sure there was no more chemical left on that tumbler. And what I ended up with is, and I'm not sure if this is due to the 50 minutes of the time that I left it on, or if this is the process for everybody. I'm not quite sure about that, but I have a great start to the design on my tumbler. But what I do have also are these lines of the letters that are just not clean and straight and crisp. It almost looks a little bit bumpy. And so I again, I'm not sure. It could be if I left the Citristrip on a little bit longer that those lines would become more crisp. It could be that my vinyl was not as adhered down to the tumbler as it could have been. Or it could just be that this is the process when you use Citristrip. I'm not quite sure, but it's okay because it was workable. So I took my wood toothpick, so about a 4-inch long toothpick, and I started detailing. And what I mean by that is I went ahead and I went over every single line of the design to etch out a really crisp, clean, straight line, depending on the letter or the design. And that took a long time. So again, the process worked, and I'm really happy with the results of the etching, but the whole detailing piece, whether it was just my process with the Citristrip or this is the process that everybody goes through, it just really took a long time. I would say one tumbler for me to etch all of the lines to make them look smooth and crisp took about an hour. And that was then on top of all of the prep that went into getting the design on the tumbler and the 50-minute process of waiting while the Citristrip goes ahead and activates to remove the paint from the tumbler to create the etched look. So that was a little bit disappointing to me. And again, this is my process and my experience. So I will be interested to hear, if you try this project, what your experience is, what your tips and tricks are to making sure you get those crisp lines when you remove your stencil that minimizes the detailing that gets done. But again, The result I got, I like. I will definitely probably do it again just to make a couple more to finish out that 6-pack of tumblers that I purchased to do this project. But anyway, that detailing really took me a long time. So let me tell you my crafting keepers for this crafting project. The first one is the tip from Bee's Knees, that tennis ball tip. There are so many times when I am attaching permanent vinyl to a tumbler or something that is curved that I really think using this tennis ball to help attach it to the design or the blank that you're using to attach your design. That was a great tip. I'm going to keep that in my crafting corner as I'm moving forward for other projects. And the other thing that I'm going to say was a crafting keeper for this project was a toothpick. That wood toothpick that I used to do all of the detailing of the lines. It did not scratch the stainless steel design, and it allowed me to get in there and just clean up that bumpy line that I had after I removed my vinyl. And that brings me to my satisfaction rating for this episode. I'm going to give it a 3. And the reason I'm giving it a 3 is that using the Citristrip, it is a chemical. I don't love crafting with chemicals. I was super excited to try this process, but getting to the point where I had to spend so much time detailing it. I had all of my protective gear on to make sure that I did not come in contact with that Citristrip gel. Just that whole process. And then just knowing that I do like how the stainless steel etching looks, but there are so many other ways that I have dressed up tumblers and cups and things that didn't use a chemical, that didn't take that time for the detailing, that it just wasn't as enjoyable as some of the other crafting projects that I've done. So I'm really glad that I tried it. I'm really glad I gave it a whirl. I would be interested to know your experiences, and maybe you have perfected the process and can email me and share some insight on how you get those crisper lines. If you want to, please feel free to email me at hello@wcapodcast.com. But until our next adventure, take care.